Greetings to everyone. Welcome back once again to this educational channel called Learn Bio with Janet. I'm teacher Janet and today we'll be discussing Form 5 Biology, KBSM syllabus, Chapter 4, Reproduction and Growth, Subtopic 4.1, Gamete Formation. We'll be discussing spermatogenesis or the formation of sperms, and we'll also discuss the adaptations of the sperm for its function. So this topic is for the old syllabus, alright, for the Form 5 students. For the Form 4 students studying the KBSM syllabus, there is also a video on reproduction that will be coming up soon, that will be produced soon, alright. So just wait for that. And I'm also working on the video for the lymphatic system as requested by some viewers. So let's get started on this video. The learning outcomes for this lesson are as follows. Number 1, after this lesson, you should be able to explain the necessity for organisms to reproduce. Number 2, state the two main types of reproduction. Number 3, explain the necessity for formation of gametes. And number 4, describe the formation of sperms in humans. First, let's discuss learning outcome number 1. Explain the necessity for organisms to reproduce. 3 marks. So all organisms will live and then they will die either from disease, old age or predation, meaning being eaten up by predators. Thus, a species needs to reproduce, that is to produce new individuals or offspring in order to replace those that have died, for the continuation of the species. That means for the species to continue existing. Learning outcome number 2, state and explain the two types of reproduction. 6 marks. So the two types of reproduction are A, asexual reproduction, and B, sexual reproduction. Now for asexual reproduction, A here means not sexual. So asexual reproduction means the production of a new individual from a single parent, only one parent, without formation of gametes. Examples are budding in yeast, as shown here, budding in the hydra species, binary fission in bacteria and in amoeba, and for plants there is vegetative propagation, such as formation of onion bulb or runners for the grass, for grasses, and other ways of asexual reproduction. So for asexual reproduction, only one parent is involved, and there's no formation of gametes like the male gamete and the female gamete. So how does reproduction occur? It occurs through cell division, usually by mitosis. Cell division by mitosis from one parent. The cells of one parent will divide by mitosis and form new cells which become the new individuals. Now for sexual reproduction, the meaning of sexual reproduction is the production of a new individual from two parents, usually the male and female parent. It involves the formation of gametes, that is the male and female gametes, which undergo fertilization when they fuse together to form a zygote, which then develops through cell division and differentiation. It will develop into an embryo and then a fetus. Okay, so sexual reproduction must involve two parents and the formation of gametes and also the process of fertilization. Okay, so in fertilization, the sperm will fuse with the ovum. The nucleus of the sperm will fuse with the nucleus of the ovum. This diagram shows the process of sexual reproduction, which involves various processes such as meiosis and fertilization. Okay, so it starts with the process of meiosis in the formation of gametes, like the sperm and ovum. So diploid cells in the testis of the father undergo meiosis to form the gametes, the male gametes, which are the sperms that are haploid. And diploid cells in the ovary of the mother also undergo meiosis to form the ova, which are haploid. And these are the female gametes. After that, if the nucleus of a sperm were to fuse with the nucleus of an ovum in the female reproductive system, a zygote will be formed, and this process is called fertilization, the fusion of the nucleus of the sperm with the nucleus of the ovum. So the zygote is a diploid organism, and it is actually the offspring of the parents. So the zygote will then undergo mitosis and development to form a ball of cells called the embryo, and then the embryo will continue to carry out mitosis and development to form the fetus in the uterus of the mother, and then finally it becomes a baby that is born, and then the baby will carry out mitosis and development as it grows, and finally it will become an adult, which is also a diploid organism like the parents, with 2 sets of chromosomes in each of his or her cells. Now we know that human beings only carry out sexual reproduction, and they do not carry out any asexual reproduction at all. So there must be some advantages of sexual reproduction compared to asexual reproduction. So the advantages are very important for our species. So sexual reproduction basically produces genetic variation through crossing over in meiosis during gamete formation, and also through random fertilization, all right, through a few processes. So genetic variation here means differences in traits between individuals of the same species. For example, differences between individuals, between humans, from the aspect of blood group, height, resistance towards diseases, and so forth. All right. So variation is very important to a species. All right, we'll find out why later. So furthermore, the offspring produced is produced from 2 parents, because each parent will contribute 1 gamete to be involved in fertilization, and the gametes contain the genetic material, okay, of each parent. So the offspring will inherit a new combination of traits from both parents. So he's neither 100% like the father, and he's not 100% like the mother, but he has his own combination of traits from both parents. So he is unlike his parents, genetically different from his parents and also from the siblings. And this gives rise to variation too. So variation or differences in traits between individuals of the same species is very important because it increases the ability of a species to adapt to changes in the environment. All right. So because of variation, even if there are changes in the environment, or if a new disease should occur, for example, like this COVID-19, there will be some individuals in the group that are able to overcome, okay, the disease and have a better or stronger resistance to the disease compared to others, because they are genetically different. All right, so they have different resistance to diseases, and that helps to ensure that certain individuals will survive. Okay, and even if there are changes in the environment, some of the individuals may die if the changes are very extreme, but others may survive. All right, because they may have better tolerance towards the conditions in the environment. So this will help the species to have a better chance of survival. It will help the human race to have a better chance of survival, of being able to live on, compared to genetically identical offspring produced through asexual reproduction, which we sometimes call the clones. Genetically identical offspring produced through asexual reproduction are called clones, and they are genetically alike, so they do not show any variation. So as we know, for clones, we have studied in chapter 5 last year in the topic of cell division. If one clone were to be attacked by a disease and die, most probably the whole set of clones with the same genetic content will also die because they have the same resistance to its disease. Alright, so that is the disadvantage of cloning or of asexual reproduction. Alright, so sexual reproduction is better than or superior to asexual reproduction. Let us now answer learning outcome number 3. Explain the necessity for formation of gametes in sexual reproduction. Okay, so gametes are formed in the reproductive organs or gonads. For example, the male gonads are the testis and the female gonads are the ovaries. So why is it necessary or important for gametes to be formed in sexual reproduction? That's because during the formation of gametes through meiosis, the number of chromosomes in the diploid parent cell will be halved to form the haploid gametes, such as haploid sperm and haploid ovum. And this will ensure that during fertilization, when the sperm and ovum fuse together, the diploid zygote is produced. Alright, that means the diploid condition will be produced again. And thus, the diploid chromosomal number of the species will always be maintained from generation to generation. Okay, so for humans, for example, the diploid parent cell has 46 chromosomes. Now, diploid meaning having 2 sets of chromosomes in the cell. Okay, and for humans, the haploid gametes will have 23 chromosomes each. Haploid meaning having only 1 set of chromosomes. Okay, so during fertilization, the 23 chromosomes in the sperm will combine with the 23 chromosomes in the ovum. They'll combine together in the zygote, and then the zygote will be having 46 chromosomes, which is the diploid condition. So in this way, the diploid chromosome number of the species is maintained from generation to generation. Now, what happens if there are no gametes formed? So if there are no haploid gametes formed, assume that the cell formed is a diploid cell that undergoes fertilization. So that means 2 diploid cells fuse together. You get a cell with 4 sets of chromosomes, not a diploid zygote, and that will not be maintaining the diploid chromosomal number. So the organism formed through this unusual process, abnormal process, will not have the characteristics of a human being at all, okay, having 4 sets of chromosomes in each cell. Now, number 2, secondly, gametes produced through meiosis are all genetically different, although they may be from the same parent. So this will cause variation to occur among the offspring and in the population of the species, and thus it will increase the ability of the species to adapt to changes in the environment, and the species will have better chances of survival. Let us discuss the structure of the male reproductive system, starting from the organ where the sperm is produced, and then we'll trace the pathway of the sperm until it is released from the body through the urethra and out into the external environment. Okay, so a male has a pair of testes, which is the male reproductive organ that produces sperms in the seminiferous tubules here, which we'll discuss later. And the testis also produces the male sex hormone called testosterone. The function of testosterone is to stimulate the maturation of the sperms and the development of the male secondary sexual characteristics during puberty at around the age of 14 for boys. Alright, so examples of the male secondary sexual characteristics that develop around puberty due to the stimulation by testosterone, the deepening of the voice, development of muscles, and also the growth of the moustache and the beard. Okay, the moustache is called the mesi. Now, so then after that, the sperms will be stored in the long coiled tubule called the epididymis. It's for the storage and maturation of the sperms. Then after that, the sperms will be transported through the sperm duct here, which is colored purple. It is also called vas deferens. And the sperm duct will carry the sperms to the urethra, which is the yellow tube here, the tube colored yellow here. So the urethra is actually connected to two systems. It's connected to the male reproductive system and also to the bladder, that means to the urinary system. Okay, this is the bladder here. So the bladder is not part of the male reproductive system. It is part of the urinary system. So next, the sperms will move through the sperm duct, and on its way it will pass through the seminal vesicle, which is a gland that secretes fluid with nutrients for the sperms. Alright, it will secrete fluid that contains nutrients like fructose that gives energy for the sperms to swim. Then the sperms will also pass through the prostate gland, which secretes fluid that helps in the movement of the sperm. Okay, and below the prostate gland there is another gland called the corpus gland or bulbourethral glands. It's not shown here, but this will be stated in the notes afterwards. So this corpus gland or bulbourethral glands produce mucus to protect the sperms and help to the mucus helps to neutralize the acidic urine in the urethra. Okay, so in that way it protects the sperms from being destroyed or being killed. So generally the secretions from these three structures, the seminal vesicle, the prostate gland, and the corpus gland, all of it will be mixed together, and it will help to provide food, protects the sperms, and help in the movement of the sperm. Alright, so these secretions plus the sperm will form the semen or the seminal fluid that flows out from the body. Okay, so the semen or seminal fluid will flow through the urethra. Urethra is a tube that channels the sperm and urine out of the body. Alright, now other than that, there's the scrotum, which is like a bag that holds the testes in its place and protects the testes. And then there's the penis, which is this part that releases the sperm into the female's vagina during copulation or sexual intercourse. So this system is very well designed to carry out the function of reproduction. Alright, so here are the notes concerning the various structures that we have discussed just now. Alright, very quickly, there's the testis that we have mentioned with the two functions to produce sperms and also the hormone called testosterone. Right, and then the epididymis is for the storage and maturation of the sperms. It's a long coiled tubule. Vas deferens, a long duct that carries the sperms from the testis to the urethra, and is also called the sperm duct. Now then there are the three structures that secretes certain fluid or mucus. They have various functions. The fluid from seminal vesicle contains nutrients for the sperms. The fluid from the prostate gland helps in the movement of the sperms, and the mucus from the corpus gland or bulbourethral glands these glands produce mucus to protect the sperms and by neutralizing the acidic urine in the urethra. That's why this word urethral here. Okay, so generally the secretions provide food, protect the sperms, and help in the movement of the sperm. Right, and they form the semen. Urethra channels sperm and urine out of the body. Scrotum protects the testis, and penis is to release the sperm into the female's vagina during copulation. So sometimes you can be asked to trace the pathway of the movement of sperms. Alright, so the sperm is produced in the testis. Then it moves from the testis, it is moved from the testis into the vas efferents, and then into the epididymis, where it is stored. Then it will mature, and after some days it will move into the vas deferens, or the sperm duct. From there it's transported and will pass by the seminal viscose, prostate gland, and the corpus gland, which provide secretions. So the secretions together with the sperm will form the semen, and the semen will move through the urethra and then out of the body. Now we have already discussed the male reproductive system. So now let's discuss the structure of a testis, which is the organ where the sperms are produced. So this diagram shows a longitudinal section of a testis, and we can see that actually the testis is made up of many small tubules called the seminiferous tubules, which are coiled up. So it is in these seminiferous tubules that the sperms are formed, all right, through spermatogenesis. So after the sperms are formed, they'll be moved through the vas efferents to the epididymis, where they are stored and then where they mature. Okay, where they are stored and where they mature. Now the epididymis is a tightly coiled tube that's around 6 to 7 meters in length. It's very long, but it is tightly coiled up. So once the sperms have matured, they will move through the vas deferens, which is the sperm duct. Okay, now here you can see the vas deferens. To the sperms will be moved to the urethra, and then out of the body. So please take note that this important tubule here is called the vas deferens, the important duct here. It's called the vas deferens, as opposed to the vas efferens, which is the short tube here. Okay, so the more commonly discussed term is the vas deferens. The more important term is the vas deferens, not the vas efferens. So the vas deferens is also called the sperm duct, and is shown here. It's colored purple. Okay, here it connects the vas deferens. The vas deferens connects the epididymis here, the red structure, to the urethra here. Okay. So now let's look at a cross section of one seminiferous tubule, because we are going to discuss the stages in the formation of a sperm. Now, if you cut through one of these seminiferous tubule, you will see that it has a few layers of cells at the walls there, and then it has a cavity, and in the cavity you can see some of the sperms that are formed. All right, and the head of the sperm is sometimes attached to the big cell here, the yellow colored cell, which we call the Sertoli cells. So these Sertoli cells are quite important because they provide nutrients for the growth of the sperm. Okay, so this is the seminiferous tubule where sperm formation occurs, and it's found in the testis. So if you look at the structure of one sperm, all right, it has a head, then a middle section, and a tail. So later on we'll be discussing the adaptation of the sperm for its function. Now let's discuss the production of sperms in the seminiferous tubule. Now let us discuss the process of spermatogenesis, which means the process of sperm formation. So this word spermatogenesis comes from two words, sperm and genesis. Genesis means the creation or formation of something. In this case, the formation of sperms. So spermatogenesis occurs in the testes, or the male gonads, in the seminiferous tubules inside the testis. Okay, so the function of the seminiferous tubules is to produce sperms. And if we cut through a cross section of one seminiferous tubule, you can see several layers of cells here. So these cells are all the different stages in the formation of sperms, with the sperms being formed in the innermost part here of the seminiferous tubule. Okay, so the initial cells that start to form the sperms are called the primordial germ cells. Okay, so they are found in the outermost layer of cells in the germinal epithelium of the seminiferous tubule. All right, now let's look at the flow chart first. So the primordial germ cells undergo mitosis to increase the number of cells, and the cells formed are called spermatogonia. Singular form is spermatogonium. So the spermatogonia and the primordial germ cells are all diploid. Now, then the spermatogonia will undergo growth. It will grow to form the primary spermatocyte, which is also diploid. So each primary spermatocyte will undergo meiosis 1 to form the secondary spermatocyte, which will then become haploid. Okay, so the conversion from the diploid state to the haploid state occurs here in meiosis 1, when the primary spermatocyte undergoes meiosis 1 to form secondary spermatocyte. Okay, this is because during meiosis 1, the homologous chromosomes will separate and move to opposite poles and also into opposite cells. Okay, so the diploid chromosomal number will be reduced to the haploid number of chromosomes. Now then, the secondary spermatocytes undergo meiosis 2 to form the spermatids. Okay, now spermatids do not have the tails and the heads, so they have to undergo differentiation to form the sperms, which have the head, the midpiece, and the tail, to help the sperm swim towards the ovum for fertilization. So remember this part here, when the primary spermatocytes undergo meiosis 1, the diploid condition will be changed to haploid condition. And also remember, a child goes through primary school first, and then after that he goes to secondary school. Okay, so primary spermatocyte first, then to secondary spermatocyte, and then to spermatid. Okay, now let's look at the seminiferous tubule here. All right, so we can see the various stages of sperm formation. First, you have the primordial germ cells, which is in the outermost layer of cells here. And then after that, the spermatogonium is the second layer of cells, roughly, it's the second layer of cells. Primary spermatocyte may be the third layer of cells here. And then secondary spermatocyte may be the fourth layer, but this stage, secondary spermatocyte, is quite short because it is the intermediate stage before the formation of the spermatid. So spermatids will be seen also here, some of the spermatids in the inner layers. And then you have the sperms. So the sperms will be found in the innermost part here, in the cavity here, and they are sort of attached to the Sertoli cells here. The big cells here are called Sertoli cells, which provide nutrients for the development or growth of the sperms. Okay, that's the function of Sertoli cells. So generally we have to know the different stages in spermatogenesis, in the formation of sperms. They're all together 6 stages that you have to know. Okay, primordial germ cells and so forth until spermatozoa, which means the sperms, or spermatozoon, which is the singular form of spermatozoa. We also have to know the processes involved in spermatogenesis. Firstly, there's mitosis, then growth, and then meiosis, and after that there's differentiation. Now let's recap what we have studied just now. So this picture shows a cross section of a seminiferous tubule, and inside there are many stages in the formation of the sperms through spermatogenesis. So the outermost layer here are the primordial germ cells that are diploid, which undergo mitosis to form a spermatogonia, and this may be the second layer, okay, in the seminiferous tubule. Then spermatogonia undergo growth, or they grow to form primary spermatocytes. Now all these cells so far are diploid cells. Then primary spermatocytes undergo meiosis 1 to form secondary spermatocytes, and here the number of chromosomes is reduced to half. So the secondary spermatocytes are haploid cells now. Okay, the first time that the cells are haploid. Next, the secondary spermatocytes undergo meiosis 2 to form the spermatids. And finally, spermatids undergo differentiation to form the spermatozoon or spermatozoa or sperms. Okay? And Sertoli cells provide nourishment or nutrients for developing sperms. Now here's a fact. During spermatogenesis, the testes produce, a pair of testes will produce several million sperms per day, or about 1,500 sperms per second. Let us now discuss learning outcome number 4. Describe the formation of sperms in humans, 8 marks. Now this question is quite important for the essay section of exams. So we have already discussed the answer just now when we discussed the pictures shown for the process of spermatogenesis. So here I'll read through very quickly the notes, and you can also copy the notes down in your notebook or as a practice to memorize it. So definition for spermatogenesis is that it's the process of sperm formation, and it takes place in the testis or the male gonad in males. Each testis is made up of many small seminiferous tubules. So the production of sperms occur at puberty when the male sex hormone called testosterone is produced, which will stimulate this process. So at around 13 to 14 years old, for boys, the diploid primordial germ cells found in the germinal epithelium in the seminiferous tubule will divide by mitosis. Okay, and these germ cells, primordial germ cells, will form diploid spermatogonia, or singular form is called spermatogonium. Right? Then the spermatogonia will grow larger and finally form the primary spermatocytes, which are still diploid. Then next stage is to change the diploid condition to haploid condition. Alright? This occurs when the primary spermatocyte undergoes meiosis 1 to form 2 haploid secondary spermatocytes. Okay, from primary spermatocyte, it forms secondary spermatocyte, just like we study in primary school first and then after that in secondary school. Okay, so remember, the primary spermatocyte is diploid, but it undergoes meiosis 1 and forms the secondary spermatocyte that is haploid. Now, then each secondary spermatocyte will undergo meiosis 2 to produce 2 haploid spermatids, which are just like general cells. Okay, so they need to differentiate to form the spermatozoa, singular form spermatozoon, or the sperm cell that has a head, neck, and a head, midpiece, and a tail. Now let's discuss this hot question here. State the adaptations of the sperm for its function. 5 marks. Okay, so the sperm has a few interesting adaptations here. It's a specialized cell, and the function of this cell is to swim up the uterus into the fallopian tube to fertilize the ovum in order to form a diploid zygote. Okay, so what are the adaptations of the sperm? Now firstly, the sperm consists of the head, midpiece, and the tail. In the head, there is an acrosome, which is an organelle, something like a lysosome. So it contains enzymes to break down the outer egg membrane that is tough for the sperm's nucleus to enter the ovum. Okay, so once the sperm reaches the egg, it has to penetrate the tough outer layer, and it will secrete enzymes from the acrosome that can break down this egg membrane, so that the nucleus of the sperm can go into the ovum and fertilize it. Now the nucleus, of course, is very important because it contains chromosomes in it, and the chromosomes carry genetic material in the form of the DNA to determine the characteristics of the offspring, should the sperm fertilize an ovum and form the offspring. Now, next, mitochondria are found in the midpiece, arranged in a row like this, to generate energy through respiration for the sperm to swim to the ovum in the fallopian tube for fertilization. Okay, so this mitochondria is like the fuel, for the object, like for example, the fuel for a space shuttle. So the mitochondria will generate energy because the sperm needs a lot of energy to swim through the uterus, up the uterus to the fallopian tube. It's a very long journey, and some people compare it to the journey that a space shuttle takes to the moon. Okay, so to swim such a far distance, it needs a lot of energy, which is generated through cellular respiration by the mitochondria. So the sperm has a lot of mitochondria. And the last adaptation is the tail. So the sperm has a tail which enables it to swim to the ovum in the fallopian tube to fertilize it.